Hi, my name is Theodore Dixon. This is my midterm oral assignment for Psych 516. And my first question is, how have recent historical events affected the course of research in organizational psychology? Give an example of the event and the resulting outcome. One event was the bombing of the trade centers in the 9/11 tragedy, where we lost many people, including emergency services people. And one of the biggest problems was that we didn't have emergency preparedness because we had not dealt with anything of that stature in the city of New York, and we just really weren't prepared for such a tragic bombing such as that. So it caused us not to be emergency prepared. And the other outcomes from this deal was that there was a economic recession resulting from it. There were many jobs lost. Wall Street itself was closed down. The stock exchange was closed down, but as a result of the losses of money and the losses of lives and the loss of businesses, there were a lot of people left unemployed, which sent us into a recession. The other event that was basically historically monumental as far as organizations go was President Obama being elected president. By him being elected president, it increased the demand for fairness because he was living proof that anyone could achieve their goal in this country. So then there was a touch by the government to get involved in organizations, forcing them to do a lot of things the way that they should be done. They were critiqued more or less by the government on how they dealt with situations. And this result turned out to be actually a pretty good thing for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. And organizations were actually having no choice but to reinvent themselves, if you will, so that they would comply with the demands of the government. So this was actually a good thing. The next question is, describe socialization for graduate students in your program. Is this program successful in socializing newcomers and creating job embeddedness? Well, being that we're doing online classes, I would say that it is definitely helping is to socialize students, because the type of classes that we're having, such as this one, which requires you to look into an organization, understand the organization from a psychological approach, and create ways to belong as well as to critique. And I find it to be very much on the good side as far as socializing newcomers. I myself am a newcomer, and the online classes are preparing me, being that I came from another field, which was criminal justice. It's preparing me for the upcoming classes that are going to probably get a little more intense. And I'm gathering a strong understanding in this class and the classes prior to what exactly psychology is and what aspects that I need to be looking into. Another thing that I think helps with this program is, and if you talk about creating job embeddedness, is internships. Internships are a great entity for anyone trying to find their way into a field. It gives you an opportunity to get into the field, learn about it, and understand what it is that it's going to require of you. And at that point, you can take out the time to reevaluate yourself as well as the organization and see if that is something that you are interested in. And I always say that you should definitely do research on anything that you're going into, even to join the graduate class for psychology, you should do some type of research to understand what it is that you're going to be up against and what it is you're going to need to be doing to be successful at it. So I would definitely say that the online classes in psychology are definitely a plus. Next question, how can an organization reduce or prevent work-family conflict? This question is a matter of time, more or less. Work hours prior to this were, in the early years, were 9 to 5, which my father did. And we were at home at night with our parents, and we ate dinner in the evenings, and Dad was there to help with homework. And he was also there in the mornings when Mom was getting us up for school in the morning. He was also there to see us off to school, and we knew that evening he would be home around dinner time. And we had both parents at the table, and it was a good structure, and everyone felt good, including Dad, because he got to see his children. The process now has pretty much eliminated the opportunity for everyone to work 9 to 5, because the workforce now is 24/7. If you can go to a store as simple as McDonald's, and there are people working through the night. So if you're on a late shift, and like let's say the evening shift or the night shift, and you have teenage children at home alone, then they're what you would call latchkey children, and you're not going to be as comfortable or as eased, if you will, at work. There's going to be some stress because all parents want to be involved in their children's lives regardless of work, but at this point, work has to take priority over being in contact with the children. Now, the other issue is that the organizations of which we become a part of for employment purposes don't take the time to find out where you are emotionally, psychologically, as far as working with the company. Some of the things they could do that would be a great reducer of stress and a reducer of conflict would be maybe to be reasonable enough and open enough to ask some of the employees, hey, is this shift working well with you with your home life? How can we help you better take care of your home life or have more time with your family and still get the same production? Well, you may find that some parents prefer to be on in the evenings because they have small children and they have a spouse that'll be home in the evening that could look after the children. And then you have some parents who don't have a spouse and they're single parents who would prefer to work days during the week and be off on the weekends so that they can spend the majority of the time with their children. So there's a lot of things that can be done. Then there's health issues that everyone overlooks. We don't know how stressed a person is, or some jobs create a lot of stress, like being a law enforcement officer. And there are times when I think that it may be a good idea, especially the uniform guys who respond to a lot of first responder type things, that maybe they should be called in sometime and asked, how are you dealing with this? Do you need some time off to deprogram? And I think that those are some of the things that could reduce the stress that people are feeling at work. And it would take some of the work-family conflict out if the scheduling was in concert with the way that their lifestyles are, as provided that it doesn't interfere with production, because let's be realistic, business is business, home is home, which I get, but it wouldn't hurt to try to make it more pleasant to increase morale, and it'll probably increase production as well. The next question is, imagine that you have been asked to develop a performance assessment program for the employee development. What techniques could you adequately evaluate an employee performance as comprehensively as possible? Well, what I would prefer to do, and have done, is I prefer that the employees help to create a job performance evaluation. I'm the supervisor, so I'm in the office. They're in the trenches, they're out there. And I think a lot of employers would be surprised at how the employees' insight could really help you understand what it is that they do and how they can be better at it and how they can be more productive and be very cost effective at the same time. A lot of talent is overlooked because they don't have the rank or the education or whatever the criteria is to be in charge. So we lose out on a lot of good thinking and a lot of talents because of those type of situations. And I think that this process gives them a chance to take part in it. And one thing I know, if you're taking part in something and you're the one creating it, it's hard for you to contest it later. If you're the one who's coming up with the questions and you're the one who's saying that these are the things that we need to be looking at, then of course I expect you to be trying to achieve them. If you're not achieving them and you brought them up, you can't blame the upper supervision for what you yourself took part in. Now, of course, some of it's going to have to be critiqued and probably approved by higher ups, but I think that you get more of a commitment when you have the people that are going to be affected by it having as much say in it as possible. And that's my theory, and that's what that would be my technique, you know. But you have to include them, otherwise it's just the us versus them, which you want to eliminate as a supervisor. The final question is, what are some possible organizational constraints and how could they lead to counterproductive behaviors? Well, one of the biggest issues, I think, is the lack of compassion coming from supervision. And I like to use a process I call LARS plus one. You listen attentively and respond sincerely and go one extra step. Because everyone in an organization can have stress. From the CEO down to the janitor, everybody has a life, so there could be stress. Now, some of the constraints to a lot of this could be government situations where the government is involved, because they'll have certain restrictions and constraints that kind of tie their hands and may take away some of the creative values. Like I said, for example, a teacher, the No Child Left Behind situation basically ties the hands of a lot of teachers. Now, there are some teachers who do need a guideline to structure their teaching, but there's some of them that are so into it that they can probably do a better job than what is on the guidelines, but their hands are tied, which is, again, is going to lower morale, which is a constraint. If people aren't happy and they can't be creative and flow the way that they can flow with whatever it is that they're doing, you're going to have a drop in morale, and the drop in morale is because of the constraints. Now, another situation that is coming up, especially on the business end and the corporation situations, is the pay ratio, man versus woman doing the same job. That has become, that hasn't become, it has been a situation for quite a long time where women, of course, now are starting to speak up about it more, but it's always been a problem with a man doing the same job as a woman and receiving less pay. And that is going to lead to counterproductive behavior, guaranteed. Nobody wants to do the same job as someone else and been there the same amount of time, yet this person's making double what you're making. I wouldn't want it happening to me, and I'm pretty sure women and other minorities, or anybody, if you will, doesn't want to have to deal with such a unfair situation. That is the conclusion of my midterm oral exam. I hope that it was everything I needed to be. Thank you.